Hey there guys, today we're taking a look at the brand new game Hi-Fi Rush running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now you're looking at the game currently running right now with the lowest in-game graphics settings, and we do have FSR turned on. It is FSR 1.0 and it is currently running with the performance preset. Now this action rhythm game is really neat, but I have never really played any rhythm games whatsoever, so I was really struggling to hit this at the beat, so I was just having a tough time with the gameplay itself. But it is really fun. I love the aesthetic of the game, and in general the performance was half decent, but the problem is with a rhythm game, having fluctuations in your FPS in general is not exactly a recipe for a good experience. And sometimes throughout the gameplay experience we would notice some pretty drastic drops where we're dropping sometimes down into even the 30s. So in general it wasn't exactly the most perfect experience like this, and we are already using FSR with the performance preset, which means that we are rendering this at a pretty low resolution. Now visually speaking, the art style actually lends itself pretty well to a upscaling method like FSR. Since it's so stylized, the edges of everything don't look as fuzzy as more realistic looking games end up looking like. So in general, FSR isn't exactly a bad experience here, though visually speaking the game doesn't look super sharp or anything like that. We are of course upscaling a lower resolution here. There's only so much that can end up being improved, but in general you can try to squeeze by with a 60 FPS average, but you have to raise the TDP. If you're going to be playing at the stock 15 watt TDP, then I would recommend you just drop down the resolution to 900p or even 720p, as you will get some pretty consistent drops that end up bringing the gaming experience pretty low for what is a rhythm game. It's all about timing, and having those fluctuations in FPS will throw off your timing. The game itself even recommends to just lock your FPS to something lower if you can't consistently keep a certain frame rate. And that's pretty much what I ended up doing. I ended up locking the game to a target FPS of 40 because it does at least let you do that instead of just the usual 30, and it ended up making the whole experience of actually playing the game far more consistent, and it did make it a lot easier to actually hit the timings in terms of the combat. But again, you do need the 25 watt TDP if you want to play this on this specific chip. You don't need to go all the way up to 30 or anything like that. At this point we're pretty much rock solid. You will see that the TDP isn't even reaching all the way up to 25 watts because it is not a very CPU bound game. We're doing pretty alright when it comes to that, and the iGPU is already reaching its max clock, so it doesn't even need the full 25 watts. But in general the performance is pretty decent here, especially once you lock the FPS to 40 instead of just leaving it at 60, because the fluctuations at 60 really overall drag down the experience. So if we're going to be dropping down into the 40s anyway, we might as well lock it to 40. But in general I was having a really good time playing like this, and like I said, the art style lends itself well to an upscaling method like FSR. So in general I didn't really find much to really complain about here, and it actually does support a wide variety of different upscaling methods. You could pretty much use FSR, you could use Intel's XE upscaling, or you could even use just temporal upscaling. In general you have a lot of options there to mess around with, but really I ended up having a lot of fun with this, and I actually do recommend the game. You can get it on the Game Pass, so you don't really need to spend a lot of money. You don't have to buy it directly, and if you're having fun with it and you're really enjoying it, you could always just straight up buy it. But it is a Microsoft published game, so don't ever expect this to leave the Game Pass. In general, I'm glad to see that this APU is still able to keep up with some more recent games, especially considering that AMD has really just not been doing much to optimize for older architectures at this point. So I definitely recommend that you give this a go, but I hope you found this look at the game interesting, useful, or entertaining. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.